Good morning. In this session, we shall be discussing maintaining democracy, which is actually an excerpt or a part of the great speech delivered by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar to the Constituent Assembly in the year 1949. This is a very important document which can also be a guideline for today's India. We all know that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, probably the greatest political thinker of that period, was asked to make a draft of the Indian Constitution. And he did it, and we all know how the great values of equality and equality beyond gender, class, etc., are enshrined. They are there as the part of our great constitution. But as chairman of the committee drafting the Indian constitution, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar gave a great deal of thought to the problems that the Indian nation may confront in actually implementing the values of equality, democratic spirit, and other values which also go with democracy, namely economic equality and the feeling of fraternity or brotherhood. In the lesson that we are reading, Dr. Ambedkar talks about these things. There are three or four very central important ideas in the lesson, and I will be commenting on them. The first one is that India had in the past a very rich and great tradition of democracy and even the parliamentary procedures. Most people believed and also believe today that the idea and the model of democracy came to India from the West, from England, and from the European nations. This, according to Dr. Ambedkar, is a wrong perception because he tells us in this lesson that there was a very vibrant and a very great tradition of democracy among the tribal societies. Please remember that these Ganas, the tribes, did not have the idea of a monarchy. The tribe was a democratic community where everybody had equal rights, and the leader of the tribe, sometimes we wrongly describe such leaders as kings. They were not kings, they were leaders of a democratic community, and all the decisions were taken collectively. Everybody's opinion was considered equally important, and through discussion and even by voting. And what Ambedkar points out is that these tribal communities had developed the parliamentary system of sitting in a parliament, I mean, sitting in meeting, and then each person allowed to express his opinion, and then coming to a decision through the procedure of voting. There was also the system of each person having a vote. As you can see, this is exactly the set of procedures we have in a democratic, parliamentarian, political system today. These traditions and such a system was a reality among the many tribal communities, some of which were quite large. And importantly, the Buddha himself was born in one such community. And he had grown up in that community and he knew these democratic traditions. Later, when he became the spiritual founder and leader of a great religion called Buddhism, he created the sanghas of the Buddhist bhikkhus on the model of the democratic system which he had seen in his own tribal community. And this is what B.R. Ambedkar is pointing out here. He tells us that we already had the experience of a functioning democracy, and we also had in the past the experience of conducting the so-called parliamentary debates, etc. But unfortunately, somehow in our past history, we seem to have lost touch with these memories, and we do not seem to have retained or strengthened those democratic values. So the issue before Dr. B.R. Ambedkar is, if we have lost these memories of democracy and democratic functioning, will that not be an obstacle now? Now that India is a free nation and it is in the process of creating its own constitution, so that the Indian nation would be a modern democracy and a parliamentarian democracy. Wouldn't this loss of tradition and memory be a problem in the implementation of democracy in India? That's one of the issues that he faces. He also feels that there are certain elements or factors in Indian society which may work against the spirit of democracy. In a way, being a very serious, committed thinker, the great Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in 1949, he is looking ahead into the future and worrying about the possible obstacles to the great idea of democracy. He sees that there are such elements and features of Indian society which may work against democracy. Now, the very heart of democracy is the idea of equality, that every citizen is equal and no one is, to quote from Orwell, more equal than others. Now, unfortunately, in Indian history, certain systems evolved which do not believe in equality. One, of course, is the caste system, about which Dr. Ambedkar talks at length here. He says that the caste system divided the Indian people into so many groups and placed them in a graded hierarchy. What does graded hierarchy mean? There is a hierarchy, that is, the belief that some castes are superior to the others, but then there are hundreds and thousands of castes, and each one is placed one above the other or one below the other. And the consequence is every caste considers itself probably inferior to another caste, but also superior to other castes which are below it. This is the meaning of graded hierarchy and inequality. Now, how can democracy function in the context of such strongly rooted inequality? This is the fear in the mind of democracy, that if we are not able to come out of caste society, if we are not able to do away with this caste inequality, it would be very difficult to implement the democratic values. As he later tells us in the same essay that we are, in the speech we are reading, um, the values of democracy are those which were declared in the French Revolution. You know, equality was a major value. Uh, the other would be the feeling of fraternity, as Dr. Ambedkar explains here. Fraternity is the feeling of fellowship and brotherhood. If you are living in a true democracy, the democracy should not be only on paper. You should have a genuine feeling that your fellow citizens are your brothers and sisters, and he feels that the sentiments created by a caste system, they divide human beings, and they create this feeling of difference and superiority, which will be against the spirit of fraternity. He also talks about equality, and in the passage which has become very famous um, in the political thoughts about India, he says, we are now going to adopt a constitution which promises total political equality. Every person, whatever may be his caste or class or status or even gender, man or woman, doesn't matter, will have one vote, and one vote is equal to one vote by anyone else. There is no inequality when it comes to the power of the vote given to an individual in the democracy as visualized, as thought of in our constitution. But Dr. Ambedkar's question is, what is the use of political equality if it is not supported by economic equality? If you just give voting power and ensure that all votes are equal, will that really function in reality unless we remove the very strong economic inequalities, I'm sorry, in society? This could be yet another problem. The third is that a strong democracy needs the idea of a nation. He gives examples of the USA and how even the religious leaders said that we should pray for the nation, not for a particular religion, but for the entire nation. So, the ultimate goal of a democracy is to establish a nation and a democratic nation. Now, how can the feeling of nationhood be created if we stand divided by caste and community, etc.? This is another issue that we need to tackle. In fact, in other great speeches also, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar repeatedly said that only political equality will make our democracy hollow. It would only mean elections, elected representatives, the parliament sitting and debating, but no transformation would take place in society unless we make a powerful effort to first create economic equality. In fact, in another very great speech, Dr. Ambedkar said, what is democracy? Democracy is a non-violent way of bringing great transformations and changes leading to equality and fraternity. This is one issue he takes up. Um, One more issue he talks about is that there are two weaknesses and therefore dangers also in the electoral system on which we create a parliamentary democracy. One is that if a particular party, for example, attains what Dr. Ambedkar describes as landslide, it attains a landslide electoral victory, there is a possibility that it may not act democratically. So that what happens is you have democratic elections, but then leading to undemocratic politics. This is one danger that he points out here. Another weakness of democracy can be that though democracy considers all citizens as equal, because of the tradition of hero worship we have in our society. Dr. Ambedkar describes this as bhakti in the negative sense of the word. He is not talking about our very great bhakti traditions, which considered man as equal to God or sometimes even greater than God. Dr. Ambedkar is talking about one negative meaning of bhakti, which means you begin to worship a leader blindly. His caution is that this may happen in democracy. Democracy, unless it creates a real feeling of equality, where every citizen believes that uh, I'm not inferior to anybody. We have a nation, we have a great nation, we have a great democracy. So all of us are equal. Any one of us could be the leader. If there is such a genuine feeling, then there is probably no danger of creating heroes and everybody becoming only a follower. The fear in the mind of Dr. Ambedkar is somehow traditionally we have cultivated this idea of following a strong leader and being loyal to him. And this goes against the spirit of democracy. And lastly, he talks about another challenge for Indian democracy. During the British imperial rule, under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi, we adopted Satyagraha, which means a peaceful um, demonstration and peaceful, non-violent struggle, uh, trying to persuade the British and the imperial masters that freedom should be given to India. Now, this form of struggle and protest worked very successfully. And Dr. Ambedkar says we had probably no other means and therefore we followed it. But should it continue in post independent India? Dr. Ambedkar feels that it should not, because after all, a parliamentary democracy is where you sit down, think rationally, talk rationally, share your views, arrive at policies which will help the people. So, if there are problems in society, they can be resolved through democracy and the constitutionally constructed parliament. Then, why do you need a civic protest? Why do you need a satyagraha? So Dr. Ambedkar felt that if there is a true democracy, it will have this power of correcting its problems and weaknesses. And he's a firm believer in democracy. And he says that accepting the democratic model is not difficult, but maintaining democracy has these challenges, and we should vigilant all the time, alert all the time, and do everything possible to create a true democratic um, culture. We need a democratic culture. And the essay concludes with a great statement that we need to become a powerful, a great, a truly democratic nation with the help of our constitution. But that cannot happen unless we are aware of the challenges and the problems of maintaining democracy. These are the major ideas in the lesson that we are reading, which is, as I said, a part of the great speech made by one of the greatest thinkers India has produced, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar.